here because
This meeting is being recorded.
I really want to hear what you have to say about this because I've got some questions for you. I only got 30 minutes or whatever because it's freezing, but I want to hear kind of where you're at with tariffs. We're what's it let's date this. What is it? Is today the ninth? Yep.
Yeah, I think
Today's
today's
the ninth.
enough.
So what's it, 7 days after Liberation Day? What do you think?
This was one of the most incompetent, poorly managed. Like I'm trying to be professional in how I critique this, but there's really,
Let it all
I'm
hang out.
sorry, there's just a lot of people are trying to defend this. There's no way to defend this. This was just downright stupidity. Like, I'm not opposed to tariffs in theory, and like one of the most frustrating things about this that came out was like people that were in like the reindustrialization movement that's actually trying to like bring manufacturing back. They had been working apparently for weeks to months, like in an official capacity, trying to like create like actual tariffs that would work, like very targeted, like actually kind of designed to do this. And then they just went with this really random formula that had no real basis in anything, went with that. And it's like,
And one they found off Chat GPT.
yeah, they literally made it with ChatGPT, and like how they did it was like apparently they took like the trade deficit and just like subtracted it, and then I think divided it by like
Yeah,
two or something. So like,
it's like if you what was it? Is like if you it's basically like you said, it's just like whatever the surplus is over the deficit.
and then like
And then
divided
it's
by
like,
two, and
what
it's
are we
like
even doing here?
it does nothing, and it completely all the good progress that people have been making for the last decade and actually trying to do like actual stuff that would work has just been It's been now been tarred by this. It's set back all these efforts, and it's just and it's hard to put it in words. Like this was incredibly stupid, incredibly dangerous. And I'm sorry, there's a lot of people trying to like, oh, this was art of the deal. There was no art of the deal. Like he even came out today and was like, yeah, I was watching the bond market last night, and everybody got scared. It's like, yeah, dude, everybody was scared. The bond market basically was within an inch of collapsing. Like,
Yeah.
and the really really scary thing that should keep a lot of people up at night tonight. So even though the stocks shot up at the end when they made that announcement, which that in of itself could be a whole conversation. Treasury bond yields didn't go down. Bond yields are still at like record highs, and gold was flat. Usually, when stuff like this happens, gold goes down because everyone's like, oh, okay, don't have to worry now. It's a pretty big indictment of like how people perceive U.S. Treasuries as like a risk-free asset, and that imperils the entire
I don't
U.S.
even
dollar.
I mean, I guess for me I'm like it's not technically risk, but it's uncertainty.
I mean, they're. I mean,
He's done all this and I think that's the thing that like someone was saying that, and I think you said to me as well, kind of same along the same vein. You're saying Mike Johnson, had to, end the meeting or cancel the floor session for the budget bill. And, it makes me kind of think about that. And it's like, okay, like people are starting to be like, yo, like you can do once or twice to kind of, play around, see what you can do with it. But we're kind of getting over this shit. And
well, the thing,
I think you might start seeing some Republicans come out.
well, the real. I mean, too, the kind of the thing with this whole budget thing. So they're already having to refinance almost 10 trillion in debt, like that comes due this year. Like I think the figure somebody sent me the other day was like we're basically trying to refinance like 30 billion a day right now. So it's like okay, like nobody's buying treasuries. That's why yields are spiking. So you're already having to figure out how we're going to pay for this. And like ostensibly one of the reasons they were trying to claim last week into like I think most they were claiming this till like Tuesday where it's like, oh yeah, they're just trying to get yields down, or what was it, like the rate down so they can refinance the debt. And it's like, okay, well, you completely failed if that was your goal. But also, it's like now they're trying to pass this budget that adds almost 6 trillion more. So it's like they're you're reaching the point where like nobody's going to be buying U.S. Treasuries because it's going to be obvious there's no way we can pay them back at least in real terms. So it's like this really was kind of the moment. I don't want to say it was the complete breaking point, but this is definitely like the start of like
People are saying this is his Afghanistan, where it's like, okay, you're incompetent. Next,
yeah.
you know,
But I mean, like on a deeper level, just like the stability in the United States. I'm like this. I know people are going to be like, oh, well, it's just bond yields. It's like, yeah, but that's pretty much how the entire dollar system operates is off those U.S. Treasuries.
well, and I was thinking about this. first off, it sucks for me because I'm trying to sell my house during all this shit, and I'm like, fuck you, dude. Like, I tell people all the time, when they're like, oh my God, this, and this, and I'm like, well, you vote for the guy, you know, and like that shit. I'm like, he said he was gonna do this. He said on a campaign trail, we're gonna do 20% across the board on tariffs. And the thing is everyone was like, no, he's not. No, he's not. And it's like, no, he just did it.
Well,
And
he went beyond that. I mean,
well,
like,
I know.
what
Well,
is?
you were saying it was now what, 24%?
No. Like, okay, so as like an average basis, so like yesterday it was 27%, now it's 24%, but that's not like everybody has a 24% rate on them.
Right,
Like
right, right.
China is now like 125%, which is absolutely insane.
But where's everyone else at usually?
Like I don't know, like that's the thing. Like their messaging has been so unclear. Like apparently, like the thing I saw earlier was like, okay, well apparently we still got like the what had he done before, like 25% on Mexico and Canada, and it's like
Hmm.
that apparently that's still in effect. They're still very unclear if that is or not. So like nobody knows what's going on, and
Yeah.
like the messaging has just been all over the place. So there's I mean markets should not be yo-yoing like this. And I'm like, do I really care about Wall Street in the sense that like I care about like them making money? No, but it's also just like I know what happens downstream of that. Like
Yeah.
the big thing.
You know what happens when they're not making money?
Well, the big thing yesterday, I think I sent it to you in the group chat. Like Haas has now stopped making CNC machines. Like they're saying demand has just dropped, and now they just don't know what to. That's like the main CNC provider in America. Like if you're ostensibly trying to like restore manufacturing, that's game over already from the start. It's
So
just
there was I forget what it was. So I think you were kind of listening to the realignment podcast, right?
I think I did at one point. I think that was more of your thing. Like I never really could get into
Okay,
it.
I thought because I know you're big into all that kind of stuff. So for me, the host he was posting something today, and I followed up, and I was like, you want to know what sucks about this is I said I forget what I said, or no, I said I hate to say it, but I think Obama was more right on tariffs than Trump, where it's like, look, I mean, people are just getting tired of this shit. Like countries, the markets, people, like everyone's just getting kind of fucking tired of this shit. And what I was trying to say with my tweet or whatever it is, I was basically saying it's like, when you look at like what Obama was doing, where it's like we got to bring in our allies, we got to do all this other kind of stuff because like we're all in this together. Trump's like fuck that, and it's like, hey, like that's not a good like why like you're changing something that didn't need to be changed. Like it was actually working pretty good, and I think if you went towards what Obama was doing, you probably would have a little bit better of an outcome than what you have now. But I don't know, man. I mean, it's just it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, but at the same time, it's like, was it Biden right? And basically the way he dealt with China, like who was right in that? And would they have recommended tariffs?
Well, I mean, the thing I point out, like Biden did do tariffs too. Like a lot of people did forget that. So
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah. Mostly
I'm not, and,
EVs and stuff like
yeah,
that.
I'm not trying to say like, I think I'm out of everybody on the podcast. I think I'm the most like right wing. So it's not like I'm sitting here like TDS or whatever. But like this, and I'm not even opposed to tariffs in theory. Like I said, like people we're work like we don't have any names yet, but like I do know people that were kind of in that sphere. And I do have like people I talk to on a regular basis that are at least connected to that sphere. And like
Hmm.
that was the thing they kept bringing. Like when this first started, they're like, dude, these guys are literally like. I mean, obviously, in like think tank capacities and stuff like that, they've been doing it for a lot longer. But he's like, even in like the past few weeks to months, like they've been trying to like craft like actually like targeted. It has mechanism, it has realistic phase ins. It's not like you wake up on Tuesday and it's we're going to put a 46% tariff on Vietnam for like, like what?
Yeah.
Like it's not. It's like it's just the sheer incompetency of it, and then the doubling down after doubling down, and then I don't know. Like the thing that really irritates me today is everybody's trying to like, oh, he's done this or done that. Like he won. It was all a plan all along. It's like you all had no consistent messaging. You've flip flopped on everything. Like come on, like what was really funny is like they spent most of the day doing that. And then he came out. I think he was in the Rose Garden earlier and was like, yeah, I was watching the bond market last night. It's just like, dude, like, but for
They
real,
have a
that
plan
was
here.
there's no plan. They don't, but dude, I was up to like I think it was like 3:30 last night because like I was watching it happen live. So apparently, what they think happened is at least one Japanese hedge fund probably imploded. So like the Japanese were like dropping treasuries big time. So like last night, like everybody, like it was really scary last night because it did look like the whole bond market was about to collapse. And like I know I keep harping on that. Like basically, how the holy dollar system works is the U.S. is the reserve currency. Is they we put bond we run a structural deficit to keep markets liquid, and because of that, there's the treasury bond market. So what that means when yields start spiking like that, it means you're basically paying a premium on that because people assume they won't get paid or they're not going to get paid in real terms. So basically, like usually what happens when there's recession scares, yields go down because everybody floods into treasuries because they're like, oh, this is a safe asset. We know, we may not get paid on stocks, but we can buy bonds, but at least we'll make money off that. And the fact that like yields were spiking, pretty good indicator everybody was very questioning the ability of the United States to pay them back.
Yeah.
And it's just that was. And the thing with the bond market is, if that goes under, that really is a Great Depression scenario.
Well, and I mean, it's funny you say you're right wing, but I probably listen to more Steve Bannon than you do. And one of the things he says this all the time, and it's like, if you think the stock market has taken out presidents, you should see what the bond market will do. They're like the bond market has killed more. He said like presidents or elected officials or something or heads of state or something like that than any other stock market crash you've ever seen. And I was like, yeah, I guess that's kind of true. But I guess what he's really trying to say is like, yeah, like the bond market's the more important one. Like that's what all your municipal debt is built on. That's what all of your, like we've got my fraternity's got, I think they put out bonds or something like that for just their fraternity house. And it's like everyone puts money in that because, it's like you said, it's supposed to be very safe and efficient. And it's like, yeah, like that's gonna hit everybody, you
Well,
know?
I mean, that's how we do mortgages are based off that, and then too, like when businesses need to borrow, that's usually one of the what helps decide the borrowing rate is what the yield on bonds are. So it's like, I mean, the big scary thing last night was like it looked like liquidity was we're having a fiscal crisis. So I mean, it was very scary last night. There was definitely a real danger, and I don't think a lot of people get that. Like there was a very huge risk last night that this whole thing could have spun out of control.
Well, and then and
Oh,
then he and then he and then he bumps everything down to 10%, put the 90-day pause on everything, and then immediately the market shoots up 10%. And it's like
yeah.
okay, like Jesus Christ, fucking idiot. Like it's like okay, somebody talk to Trump. He's listening. You know,
Oh yeah, that's what. Well, I mean, that's what he said. Like he came out today. Like Jamie Dimon himself was like, "You got to stop this. Like we with this kid, you
like
got to
you gotta
stop
stop
this."
fucking around with this.
And apparently Scott was his last name
That's it.
Bessent.
Yep.
Yeah, I can't remember
Dude,
how
I
to
always
pronounce
get
it.
him and Lutnick confused because Lutnick's
What?
the Commerce Secretary, right?
Yeah. Well,
I
Lutnick's
always
the
get
one that
him.
kind of looks. This is a really weird way to differentiate him, but like Lutnick is the one that looks like Harvey Weinstein. Every time I
Um,
look at him, I just think of that. But
the other one
no,
looks like kind of like a Jeb Bush.
yeah. But yeah, that was another thing that came out today. Was apparently he pulled him to the side and was like, "Look, Japan's about to blow up. We're going to have to do something."
Yeah.
I mean, and then what is really really frustrating. So the last couple of hours, I've been seeing a lot of tweets on it. Like everybody was like, "Wait a minute!" Like stuff like I think it was like 10-15 minutes before, like there was a big spike in trading activity. So like people knew the word. They were letting people know before they officially announced it. Like somebody came in almost 20 minutes before the official announcement, and then like 10 minutes before call started spiking. So like they knew. So a lot of people, that were connected, use those connections to make a lot of money today. And it's so frustrating because it's like there's so many small businesses that are probably going to go out a bit, like going to lose everything because of this. And then
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and you always have that. I mean, I think it came out like Marjorie Taylor Greene had dumped a bunch of stock. Now this could be a non-true story, but it looked like she had dumped a bunch of stock right before Trump announced his first round of tariffs. And it's like, oh, okay, that's interesting.
yeah,
Like what'd you buy? Like what'd you buy with that money? So I get it, and all that stuff's dumb. And I've always said, I don't, I get corruption, quote unquote. I get that. I get like, um, people taking a little bit for themselves and stuff like that. But I'm like, what really gets me kind of fucked up on this is it's like you're taking from the pot when everyone else is losing money.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Like, hey, yeah, times are really good and everyone's making money and it's like 2018, 2019, whatever it is. And it's like, okay, and you want to get a little rich? Okay. I'm not gonna bitch and moan about that as much. But it's like now it's like, go fuck yourself.
It's just this whole thing. Like I think I've always been the doomer. I know you guys are kind of push back on
You
that,
are.
but like, but seeing
It's
that with
honestly
like,
annoying, Austin, because it's like every time I check my phone, it's like the market's gonna go down tomorrow, blow your brains out before the purge begins, like shit
I
like
mean,
that. It's like okay, Jesus Christ, dude. Like it's like I'm like Austin, get off Twitter, dude. You need to go touch the grass.
uh,
But
you've been holding that you've been holding that one in for a little bit.
well, I mean, I'm just sitting here and I'm like Jesus Christ, Austin. Like I'm like okay, dude, things are bad, but like for example, I watch have you heard of Patrick Bet David? He's kind of in like the
Yes.
right realm. So he posted something like 2 days ago where he's like I just want to let everyone know, don't pull your money out, leave it in and everything like that. And I was like, it's funny you were saying that about like Jamie Dimon because like he's kind of like I like to say he's kind of more on the actual business side of things than like some of these people who claim they're businessmen. Like I think he's that, and then he's also a little bit of a celebrity and everything like that. And so he kind of has all that together, a popular YouTube channel. And I was like, the fact that he's coming out here and saying that, like, I'm like, Jesus, like, he knows that, like, I think, and I was like, I think he knows that if everyone took their money out, then you would definitely have a financial crisis. You would be like nope, liquidity issue, like, bank run, that kind of thing. They got to start bailing out banks. Like, that's when I was like, okay, like, we might be a little bit too close. But that was, other than that, like, no, I haven't really felt that at all.
I probably the work. Like I think I sent stuff in the group chat last night. So this is probably what you're thinking about. But like that was kind of because I was watching that live with like the yield because the yield shot up like I think it started going up a lot around like I want to say it was like 6 to 8 is when it started noticeably shooting up, and then like by like 12 and 1 o'clock it was like okay, this is actually kind of this is real. This is so that was kind of my nightmare scenario at that point.
Did,
But
I can't remember, um, oh, I was going to tell you something. So with with the with one of the theories I've heard about Trump and these tariffs is I've heard and he kind of mentioned this once, but it's like people are like, I don't know if it's 100% believable. He had mentioned he's like we're going to see like who fails. Like who's like not strong basically. Like I think he was like the weak are going to fail, the strong will survive and all this other kind of stuff. And I was thinking about it and I was like like it kind of makes me go back to I think what my first and probably original plan was is that I don't want to say he's trying to induce a recession, but I think he's like trying to like okay, like we got to shed some fat here, and like okay, like if you're really close to the edge right now, you're done, and I feel like that's kind of what he's trying to do with the markets. Like okay, like let's shake it up a little bit, and then we're gonna push it into the direction we want it to go. Because I think it's true. I mean, hey, like look, inflation's still pretty high, interest rates are still pretty high, and like we need to kind of bring things back to normal and then we can kind of go off of that. But I think what my concern is like, okay, you're really taking us close. Like you're getting close to the muzzle here. And I think that's worrisome. So knowing what you know now, purely on tariff policy, would you have voted for Kamala Harris?
no,
So you think that Trump's tariff plan is still better than what Kamala would have put up? Or
I mean
economic plan at least.
honestly, I don't know. Like, it's like for me, I've always said like my voting is always based more on like. I think for me, my biggest probably the biggest thing I cared about last year was like, okay, like for one, there's like social policy. That's a big one for me. Like I'm still to this day, like I'm very like.
But just but what about economic policy? Because I get the social policy stuff, but like
In terms
economic
of,
policy, like what do you think? You think what Trump is doing is still better?
I don't even want to say that no, because like I said, this was. I don't think she would have done anything like comparable to this, as like in terms of just like it's stupidly done, but it's also just like I think it would have been more status quo. I think now whether like obviously this was
But are
stupid.
you saying that we don't? Are you saying that what the status quo wasn't good enough?
I
Like
think
it
I'm.
was good,
I guess this is more of like a personal preference thing and kind of like a pure like policy thing in my view. But it's just like to me, it just that wasn't what I voted for. I'll put it like that because it's like I don't really think they would have done anything too drastic. I'm not saying the status quo was necessarily worse, but I also don't think the status quo was really working. Like, I mean, obviously, when you look at any of that data, like we went over this before, it just there wasn't a whole lot of like positive elements. I get, and two, it kind of goes down to like, okay, what are they actually trying to do with these tariffs? Because, like I said, they've been wildly inconsistent with what the purpose is.
so the way that I kind of look, I was kind of thinking about this question was I was like, like I think that Kamala might have given me something I maybe didn't want. But I think that Joe Biden and some of what he was able to do with industrial policy, pairing it with some tariffs, I think going along that trajectory, because I mean he was constantly doing that. Like it wasn't like one time he did that. I thought it was like initially EVs were maybe like 50% and then they're like 100%. Like he was gradually increasing these things. And I think for me that looking back, I would still say I probably would want something to what he was creating with industrial policy, economics. I think shifting to some of the more competitive industries that we need to compete with China on, things like that. I'd probably say I'd probably want something that Biden has, but I definitely don't want what Trump has, and I'm not as fond of what Kamala would have given me. So if I was between Kamala and Trump, I don't know. Maybe Kamala, I guess. But if it was like Kamala, Biden, and Trump, I probably would have done Biden.
Okay, like I said, for me, like
But you're saying you would have gone, or you're saying it doesn't matter,
well,
basically.
it doesn't matter in the grand. Well, I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. I'm just saying in terms of like specifically like what I would have voted for.
So here's this is kind of a side question. Um, what do you think is the like? Maybe this is a little too broad. What do you think is the greatest actual contributor to economic growth?
That's a good question. Like, what ideally should be, or do
Well,
you
I mean,
mean?
like I don't think government spending is really correlated to that. I think it's more on the culture of the country that probably drives the actual economics of that country. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up about like government spending because like something a lot of people I follow and kind of made the point of was like, so here, let me pull up one real fast. Okay. All right. So since 2008, the U.S. GDP has gone from 14.7 trillion to 30.3 trillion. During that same time, the national debt has gone from 9.98 trillion to 36.6 trillion. That means debt has grown by 267%, while GDP has only grown by 105%. So it's kind of like what we're doing now is not working. I mean, like, it's kind of what you said. Like, it's ideally we should not be running these huge deficits, but it's kind of clear when you look at it. It's like okay, so a lot of the growth since 2008 has basically just been more or less done by the deficit,
Yeah.
and it's like, and what was the other data? Let me pull it up here. So it's like, I mean, obviously, like I think honestly, we've experimented with services like really since about the 70s to 80s is when I would kind of peg it. we've become this financialized service economy, and that's clear that's not working. Like that model clearly died in 2008, and it's just been operating on life support since then. And so it's kind of like you look at China. I mean, honestly, I think it's manufacturing, and like there is studies to prove that this isn't just like, oh, I just want everybody on the factory lines. It's like no, when you look into it, like I don't have the data in front of me. I'd have to find it, but it's like when you have one manufacturing job, it tends to create. I think it's like three non-manufacturing jobs, but just because of like,
I've seen it almost go up to like 5.
okay, yeah, maybe that,
I mean,
could,
it's a pretty good size multiplier.
and like multiplier. That's what the term I was looking for. And then two, it's like you for every dollar you put in. The last figures I saw was like you get like I think it's like 2 something back. So it's like you invest 100 million in manufacturing, you'll end up getting close to 300 million back. Well, then you look at services, and it's like I've seen it as low as for every dollar you put in, you get 97 back, and I've seen it as high as like $1.06. So I mean, it's like we've chosen this really ineffective model, and so I would definitely say manufacturing. Like there is, and that's like I said, like I'm not opposed to tariffs in theory. Like I want good tariffs. I don't want this absolute clown show we've had for the past week. But it's like, and there is a valid point. Like we need to bring manufacturing back. Like that has to happen. And we've talked about that before too. Like one that, funnily enough, I don't know if you saw this, but one of the big copes I seen was like, oh, they're just trying to crash the market so they can get rid of Triffin dilemma, which is something I think I talked about with you guys as early as what, December or January.
Maybe.
So like I've been seeing that, and it's like that's not the way you want to go about it. You don't want to cause a second Great Depression just to like. There's ways you can do that. We've talked about it before here, and like there's plenty of papers out there now. And it's just
So here's kind of where I stand on. I was thinking about this more today. Here's kind of where I stand on the manufacturing. You got 3 buckets. You've got stuff that like kind of some of the products that we make, very manual and very kind of skill based. Um, those I think are probably going to get sent to are still going to be are still getting sent to China. Um, I think then you have the ones that you have to have super technical people, you know, um, you have to be skilled and you can't really automate. Those people I think are going to probably stay here, and that's kind of what we the manufacturing we have here. But I think you've got your automation, and I think that's one key part that I feel like we haven't really grappled in terms of the economic mix of all the sectors. Is like okay, services is services, that's already kind of trying to be automated. But I'm like, we also need to kind of start having the conversation with unions and whoever else about okay, like we need to actually look at what automation is going to do to our economy and how we're going to fix that. Because I don't even see where we're any stage where we are competitive with China and we are not automated. Like we can't like if we're expecting like Americans to buckle up their bootstraps and go into the factory, we're not going to get anything done. Like there's certain things we can, but like we're not going to be able to compete against those that we need to compete if we don't have that. So when I look at sectors that we need to come over here with manufacturing, I'm like, okay, maybe textiles where we can compete with China, and that's how we're going to compete. But I'm like, like other stuff, like cars, that might be like 2 steps down the line. And so like you can really kind of have to like look at it with that, and I feel like no one's kind of having that conversation. It's like, okay, if you want us to be powerful, you got to have this. How are we going to handle that with you? You know?
mm-hmm.
And I think that's the biggest. And so when I hear you say like the manufacturing, I look at this automation stuff, and I'm like, okay, are you really going to get 5x jobs back from that manufacturing if it's a smart manufacturing facility? Or is it going to be like 2.5 because you don't have all the people on the floor or whatever it is? And so I almost wonder like, are we going to lose, how important it is to have an industrial base because it's not going to create the jobs that we like to tout?
Well, see, part like the whole thing. A lot of the big issue is like, so to kind of start with that. A lot of the issue, like Americans don't want to do like lower level of manufacturing. It's like I think me and you have talked about this before, or I've talked about somebody because it's like you look at the pay and it's just not great at all. Like they
No.
don't want to. Like I've sat here and compared it. Like I'm from like basically like more or less East Tennessee, so there's still quite a bit of industry there, and it's like you look at it, it's like oh they're paying 14, 15, $16 an hour, and I'm like I worked for Walmart for like 3 years when I was younger, and it's like I made more money at Walmart than I did a lot of these manufacturing jobs are offering, and it's
Well,
like
so like, what would you say is probably like a decent amount? Because we had people who we worked with, and they were coming in like at 19, and I think they were up to like maybe 20, $21 an hour. And I was sitting there, I was like honestly, that's not bad. Because you also got to remember they're getting overtime, they're getting all that other kind of stuff, you know.
I consider that a decent pay. Like if that was kind of now it kind of does depend on like the market. Like was this towards like Atlanta and stuff?
No, this was out in kind of like more rural South Carolina.
Oh yeah, then for South Carolina, that's really great pay. I mean, like honestly, yeah, for sure. But it's like,
And yeah, they probably got benefits and stuff like that too.
so I mean, that's decent. And like honestly, that's kind of what about basically what I started out as like a government employee. So I mean, and benefits and stuff like that too. So it's like that's decent. Like I could see that, but the problem is, like I said, like even I've looked at it like around here where I live in North Carolina now. It's like 15 or something. They want you to have like the really weird thing I've noticed is like a lot of these places they want you to have like a year or two of experience on like CNC machines or stuff, but they're only wanting to pay you like 15 or 16 an hour. It's like
Yeah.
you're wanting experience, qualifications, and certifications that take money to get, but you're only wanting to pay about the same wage as what Walmart pays around here. Like I've checked because I was kind of curious because I knew what it was like back home, and I checked it down here, and it's like, yeah, literally, it's still a more financially beneficial decision to go work for Walmart than your local factory. And it's
Well,
like,
and the thing is that job I was telling you that was getting 19, 20, 21, $22 an hour.
mhm.
They actually shut it down. And one of the big reasons was they can send that job to Malaysia for, I heard it was something like 10 cents on the dollar. I mean, it was almost like, okay, like I don't want to say slave labor wages, but it was like Jesus Christ labor wages. And I think Mexico is only like 70-ish cents on the dollar. So like they're still cheap too. But, I mean, you sit there and say, "Oh, that's pretty good pay." And it's like, yeah, but even then, like they're shipping that shit,
And
over
that's
over a
yeah,
sea too. Like if they can get a nickel, they're gonna get a nickel.
and that's kind of the other issue too. Is like if it was already here, don't tell me that you can't do it. Like you obviously could do it. And you conscientiously decided to screw everybody over. That's the kind of stuff when it's like, okay, yeah, tariffs in that case would be like valid,
Yeah.
but like you're what makes this issue so frustrating is you're competing with so many different angles on it. I think because there's the one hand, it's like this. There's obvious cases like that where it's like obvious short-sighted corporate greed, and then there's other stuff where it's like we'll just slap a 120% tariff, nothing bad will happen at all. It's just so much stupidity, and then it's so frustrating, and and what really it's just keep going. I keep harping on this point, but like I'm through friends of friends kind of situation. I knew people that were like working on this that actually had kind of come up with like a pretty decent or attempting to come up with like a decent industrial policy that would it's like it just makes it all the more frustrating because it's like really we could do a lot on this and it really just comes down to stupidity and greed and just so many others and it's very blackpilling in a sense.
So one thing that I um I was thinking about the other day is like, okay, if I want to have a slogan as a president, and this will be the last thing I say because we got less than 4 minutes left, is it's the whole abundance agenda stuff. And I was thinking about it in like that kind of context. And I'm like, like I think we need to have these small, smart manufacturing facilities, but we need to have them everywhere. We don't need to have a steel mill that's like this huge facility, everything like that. Like we need to be able to diversify that and put it all over the country. And we need to be able to get it to the point where we've got one in every little community, almost like a co-op, and a granary and things like that, where they go in and they used to have for like mills. It's like that's what we need. We need to have that so it's like local, and people can get jobs or they can get whatever's there, and they can have locally sourced stuff. And like that's the way we're gonna have to do it. Like we're gonna have to diversify this economy and democratize it all throughout. And when I was thinking about it as a politician, okay, how would I sell that? I'd be like, think about energy. I want to get energy costs down to 10 cents per kilowatt hour or whatever it is. And it's like, why? Because that's what China's got. And it's like, if you want to compete with these adversaries, you got to go down to the level that they're at. And, like steel, that's another one. Like, hey, yeah, I want to get steel down to the cost that it would take to produce in China. And we got to look at labor and say, okay, well, how can we do that? Right? Like, okay, we got to get rid of some labor costs here, and if we can automate it, we can automate it. But the end goal is getting, you know, that down to however much it would cost to do in China. Now, the only caveat I would say with that is like, don't do what Trump's doing, where you just say fuck it, we ball, and we just do it tomorrow. It's like have like a plan, like a rundown plan of how you're going to do it. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's like I get what he's trying to do with tariffs. But it's like, dude, you can't go about it this way. Like you've got to phase this in, you've got to if you're going to do, something really radical, you got to have incentives. So last thing, you got 1 minute. Anything you want to say to that? Or finish this off?
No, that makes perfect sense. There's no. I think a lot of the issues people think there's just one trick and then you fix everything. It's like no, there's a whole process to this, and it's going to take time and it's going to take effort.
All right. Well, we'll end it there, and hopefully we're not having a fire call tomorrow and having to, do another episode. But we'll see. Josh will
Yeah.
be back, and we'll see what's going on with him.
All right, sounds
All
good.
right. See you.
See ya.